This question will be for all of you, and we're going to start with Andrew, who's going to be the first to answer it. Andrew, what do you see as the #1 problem facing the First Ward, and what will you do about it?
Thank you. The #1 problem that I see is the lack of city services being dealt with the community. I've gone door to door since the summer because I think the best way to find out true feedback is by the actual constituents of what they feel is the problem or what we can do to make it better, because that's what a civil servant is here to do, is to make it better. So what I plan on doing as a solution would be a couple things. One, I want to be known as the readily available alderman, so you can hold me accountable in ensuring that all the complaints, if you will, for problems being anything from potholes, street lights being out, if there's a tree that needs to be serviced, you can rely on me to respond to that properly. And one way to do that is to develop a mobile application for your phone, to where you could take a photo of it, send in the address, and then you can send it to the alderman's office so I could excuse me, respond to it and make sure the proper bureau or department within the city of Chicago is responding to that properly and timely. Now, as to following up on that, I plan on having numerous follow-ups with each and every supervisor in every department to make sure that the concerns from the constituents is being dealt with properly. So,
Andrew, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I asked what is like the biggest problem that you see, and you're kind of talking about like what your platform is and what we would do, like, you know, from crime to schools to development to like, do you see an overarching theme or something that is a big problem in the ward that an alderman like you, if elected, would have the power to help solve that problem? Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. And that's what I was really getting at, that city service is the #1 problem. Okay. Now, there's obviously more issues as well, but as to the #1 that I see as far as feedback would be for city services. So.
And you don't have to take the whole 2 minutes. Actually, there'll be more time for other questions. So
okay.
That's cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Rhonda, can you answer the same question? What do you see as the #1 problem facing the First Ward, and what would you do about it?
Okay. Well, as alderman, I'm looking at this, and I'm also going door to door, and we don't make these things up. We do, in fact, I'm hearing firsthand that ward services are the #1 issue. I'm going door to door, and I'm hearing rats, potholes, garbage, and unresponsive office. So I will be a full-time alderman, and I will set up an established responsive office where the #1 objective of that office is to service the constituents. Now, again, I did spend 2 years in the office. You can tell by the ward, I did, by my bio, that is in fact what I said would be the #1 thing, to set up a responsive office. I think with my business background, I would establish an office with development plans where staff doesn't turn over, where you have an alderman there 40 hours full time. You know, I was in the office, and I firsthand saw that there was not a full-time alderman there. Also, if you look at the city clerk's website, this alderman was only in his committee meetings 40% of the time. If you look at the city of Chicago's website, there's a declaration of economic interest that shows he still works at the printing company that he worked at prior to getting elected. Problematic when you campaign to be a full-time alderman. So as a alderman also, I will lead with integrity. When I say I'm going to do something, you will know that's how I'm going to vote and what I stand for. This alderman at a recent EVA meeting just 2 nights ago touted that he has raised money and spent $140,000 for community parks, schools, slow plows, various community efforts over the time that he's been in office. This alderman has also raised over $700,000, and since only $100,000 is in the bank, I question, why haven't you done more for the community?
Thank you. I first want to thank the Wicker Park Committee for putting this on, Elisa and Elaine for hosting. or for moderating. I also want to thank all of you for coming out, especially on this frigid, cold weather. I'm going to answer the question specifically, unlike the last response, but I do feel that I need to respond to some things that were just factually wrong. I did spend $140,000. I don't know of any other alderman that has spent $140,000 in 3 years to complement city services. And when I say that, the city, as you know, is strapped. And so I think it's my responsibility to raise money and spend $140,000 on things like graffiti removal. We have an award-winning graffiti removal program, doesn't cost taxpayers a dollar. I started that in this ward. We have a text messaging system that I pay for out of my own pocket, not taxpayers, that reminds every one of you, if you'd like, to move your car in the morning or in the evening, okay? I also am very, very proud of the fact that what I have done in the last 4 years have brought the resources to the ward, and I will continue to do that.
So sorry to interrupt. I really apologize. The question was,
Sure.
what do you see as like the #1 problem? You mentioned
I
the
think
strap
one
budget.
thing I would say, if it's fair for others to go offline, I think it should be fair for all 4 of us to go offline. Let's just keep it consistent. Let's keep it consistent.
Okay, gotcha.
Ward services are always a challenge. I have a staff that I'm very proud of that helps, and a volunteer organization that puts their own time and money into helping us at Pritzker School and other places. The biggest challenge that we have, not problem, I don't look at them as problems, I look at them as challenges, is to continue the growth of our schools in this ward. Every single school in this ward has increased their ratings over the last 4 years. We have Clemente High School. Let me talk about Clemente, a great story, and Jose Lopez is here, a community organizer for years that helped us. We brought an international baccalaureate program to Clemente, a school that was on probation for 14 years, had 800 students going there, 3,200 seats. We now have doubled that, and they're at level 2 for the first time in 14 years and off probation. That's the challenge. I'm up for it. I brought it here, and I'm going to continue to do that. Thank you very much.
And?
That's okay. So the whole reason why I'm sitting here today, as many of you may remember, 2 years ago, a very pivotal police station closed. So the #1 issue, not just for our ward and every one of our communities, but also citywide, is public safety. That is the #1 issue. We are one of the few wards that lost 2 police stations, the 19th and the 13th. And Joe here actually stated that it was one of his proudest moments of his career to close down the 13th District Police Station. I call that a tragedy. And from that, public safety encompasses many things, including good, fully funded schools. Joe voted for the budget that closed down 50 neighborhood schools. Another tragedy for our community. Another thing that we need that's also hand in hand with public safety is mental health clinics. Not only did Joe vote to close that mental health clinic, but he had a Christmas party in one of our closed mental health clinics last week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago.
Sorry. Oh, sorry about that. So how are you going to solve that problem of public safety? So you identified public safety as the problem. How are you going to solve it?
First of all, immediately, we should hire 1,000 police officers. We spend $100 million a year on overtime, which is dangerous for the public as well as to the police because it causes them to work longer hours and get tired. And we can hire 1,000 police officers just on that overtime alone. That's immediately where we start. Second of all, is we have to examine where we are spending our dollars. There's this concept called TIF money, which is tax increment financing. That money, most of that should have gone to the public schools. And what ends up happening is we're actually starving our public schools and taking away very vital resources. I, for one, am here today, a civil rights attorney for almost 20 years because of the public school education that I received. When I went to grammar school, I didn't speak any English, but it was through social workers as well as, I'm sorry, I'm done, okay. But I benefited greatly from my education in the public school system.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. We survived round 1, right? Oh, let's turn this on. Okay, thank you, everybody. And this is question 2. So Rhonda will begin this question. Rhonda, do you think Mayor Rahm Emanuel should be reelected? Why or why not?
Wow. That's a tough one. No, it's not tough at all. I do not believe he needs to be reelected, and I firmly believe we need new leadership. We need new leadership at the mayoral level as well as the aldermanic level. I know I agree with Ann in terms of the budget decision, the budget that was, we've actually had fees and fines raised over $500 per family, per person, every single year since Rahm has been in place. That 2012 budget that closed our multiple 3 police stations, raised the parking and water fees, closed half of our mental health clinics. Sheriff Dart has indicated that the Cook County jail system has become the #1 provider of mental health services. So when you talk about crime, mental health services are directly related to that, and that goes across the city. So, I think that we need to fight. I'm an advocate. My platform is development that puts the community first. Education. This alderman is wrong on education. We have had, the charter school expansion. Yes, this alderman will tout that he tried to save 2 neighborhood schools in Humboldt Park, but that was the direct result of the very first year he was in office. He brought in Uno School right next to the 2 charter schools.
So sorry.
So you asked me why, and I'm explaining why Rahm is the wrong candidate.
Okay.
But the same token, the policies of education are wrong. It's a privatizing is what he's trying to do. He's trying to bust the unions. And, we are the only city in the entire state with an appointed school board. And that is wrong because the board is not responsive to us, the stakeholders. I'm a CPS mom. I'm an twice elected to an LSC. I care about public education. And I will advocate for policies that put the stakeholders first. And I believe that our mayor is for privatizing. His cronies that are on that board have had multiple investments that are costing tax dollars. I'm getting cut off here.
Thank you. And the next question is for Alderman Moreno. Same question. Do you think Mayor Rahm Emanuel should be reelected? Why or why not?
Thank you. I'm the only alderman besides Rick Munoz of the Latino caucus that has not endorsed the mayor. I'm the only alderman in the Paul Douglas Alliance besides the Mayor Poar that hasn't endorsed the mayor. When I came in, previously aldermen and committeemen basically made decisions to endorse people by themselves, and then they asked volunteers to go out and campaign for them. I didn't do that. I have a board of directors, an endorsement committee. It goes through them first on whether we endorse, as we did Will Guzzardi, as we did Mike Frericks, and as we did President Preckwinkle. We're going to follow that same endorsement process for this mayoral election, and I'm having coffee with Chuy Garcia next week, so we'll see. A couple things I want to add to that. We didn't vote on a budget. My opponent said we voted on a budget to close schools. That's incorrect. That's unfactually correct. We did not vote on a budget to close schools. That's not in the City Council's budget. That's in CPS's budget. Secondly, I would say to my opponent to the right and to the left, if you don't want to use TIF money and you want to all return to the schools, which I voted for, of only 11 aldermen, progressive aldermen, I'd like you to go over to Diego and tell those parents and students of low income that they don't get their new playground that we just built with TIF money. Then also go to Chase School, a little bit farther west. There's parents here from Chase School. Tell them that they don't get a new playground that I allocated TIF money to buy, and then to go to the nursing school right behind us that we brought from the suburbs into the city, 300 nursing students going there, 15% get free tuition if they're low income. That's the proper use of TIF money, all right? I want to close on this as well. I would like Rhonda to go visit Uno School. Go visit Erie School. And you talk to the parents at those schools, and you tell them that their school shouldn't be there. Parents that are choosing to have their students go there. Now, I think that our charter schools have gone too far. That's why I support a moratorium. But if you've never visited this school, don't say it should be shut.
Excuse me. I was told that
We're just getting away from Rahm, right? Time has been up. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. For some unknown reason,
in my life. You'll know that too. I'll never cut the band.
Okay, Anna's next, Ann Shaw. And let's see, thanks. Should he be elected? Re-elected, excuse me.
So, I have actually weighed this quite heavily because a lot of the policies that Joe actually voted for and supported, and the fact that he votes 95% with the mayor, you know, a lot of those policies really critically hurt the first ward. And I've already explained that earlier on how they did that, and they continue to do that, especially with public safety. I mean, it's gotten so bad that I hate to have to say it, but the mayor's own son was mugged in front of his home. And, you know, and I actually did, and a lot of people don't realize this, but when I was fighting to save the 13th District Police Station from closing, I actually approached Rahm Emanuel and handed him 4,500 signatures that myself and the community out here, many of you are out here, sitting out here today, went and collected. And I actually said, Mayor Emanuel, please don't close our police stations. And he said, you know what, Ann, I'm closing my own police station. And I said to him, I said, Mayor, please don't even close yours, because I'm sure your community needs their station as well. And sure enough, I hate to say that this happened to his son. So there are definitely serious issues with the city, budget issues, and things that we need to address, but the way things are being done for the last 4 years is not the right way. Because what we're essentially doing is hurting the people the least able to afford this by looking at raising taxes, fees, fines, cutting school budgets, and believe it or not, the CPS budget is part of the overall City of Chicago budget, which is actually voted on by the City Council. So, do you want to grab this from me? So the bottom line is, I respect, and I very much, being a challenger myself, I very much respect and am proud that we have strong challengers out there who I absolutely support. I'm still weighing that option now, but I'm definitely leaning towards one of the challengers. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, you're up next, obviously.
Thank you. Yes, I'm obviously weighing in some of the challengers as well, and in particular, I'd like to, like similar to tonight's debate, I'd like to hear some of the debates that are happening with the mayor's office. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit more what Chewy has to say. I like his vision with the education platform. Staunch supporter. He's supported by or endorsed by the CTU. I think that's the vision of education for the future, starting with trying to have a smaller ratio in schools for teacher to student. We need healthier plans for our students when it comes to eating, playtime, so they can stay healthy. I'd also like to see, in addition to what the CTU is stressing, is competitive salaries for our teachers in a traditional sense. And we also, so that's a platform that I see that is the future. I have mixed feelings when it comes to charter schools. I think the elected school board is something that we need, not an appointment. Let the people decide what's in the best interest of our community and our schools.
So sorry, hi. Just, if you can just indicate why Rahm should not be reelected. Like, you're talking a lot about overall policies and things, like what is the main reason why we should not have him as our mayor again?
Well, it's not that I'm very interested in what Chuy Garcia has to say from here to February. But as to Rahm, there are some things I agree with Rahm and there are some things I disagree with. And number one is, I feel when it comes to our city budget, it's just 2015, it's just another way of kicking the can down the road. We refinanced our bonds, which is basically just borrowing more money to pay our current cost off. And I don't know, I think it went out.
Gotcha, thank you.
That's it.
We appreciate
Oh.
it. Thank you.
Okay.
This next one's kind of fun. I like this one. This is a question, it's first ward, but it's also all over the city. There's been a rise in transit-oriented developments, which are, developments that are near transit-friendly areas that usually have 400 square feet or less. It allows developers to offer half the amount of required parking spaces or sometimes no parking spaces at all. It's kind of a two-part question. One, do you support these developments? And secondly, some people complain that these developments are geared towards, younger single people at the extent of not attracting families to the neighborhood. Do you see that as a problem? And if so, what can be done about it? So basically, are you supportive of the transit-oriented developments? Your thoughts on it? We'll start with Joe Moreno.
Okay. Well, I'm obviously supportive of it because I was the lead sponsor in getting it passed in City Council, citywide. Not a lot of our aldermen pass citywide ordinances, and I'm proud of the few that I've done, the TOD ordinance being one of them. What TOD does is that it allows for density by our hard rails. So the first one in the city that was built was at Ashland Division, the Wicker Park Committee that's here tonight, and the East Village Association. We worked very closely with those two community groups to make that a reality. We had a dilapidated Pizza Hut there, as you all know, generating about $10,000 in real estate taxes, a blight on the community, and the only thing that could be built before my ordinance passed citywide was another basic one-story Walgreens, one-story McDonald's. The community felt that TOD was appropriate for that site. We now have 99 units there, 100% full. Of the 99 units, 10% are truly affordable units. I'm going to tell a cute story, a neat story, not a cute story about that. And the residents there rely on the rail and their cycles to get around the city. It's better for the environment. I'm proud the Wicker Park Committee just tonight supported the third one, the community organization here that I refer to zoning changes to, supported the third one on Milwaukee Avenue. They're going to generate real estate taxes, and they're going to allow for people that don't want a car, don't need a car, and never see them having a car to live there. I knocked on the doors at Ashland Division about a month ago on a Saturday. About a third of the residents were home, about 33 people we talked to. Not one person has a car. And a woman answered the door, and I said, hey, if you give me your email address, I'll send you the newsletter I send out every week. African-American woman, I would guess in her late 20s, early 30s. I would never ask a woman or anybody their age. She gave me a Northwestern address. She's going to Northwestern for grad school. She grew up in affordable housing on Levitt Street, the same street I live on, and is now back in the neighborhood getting her graduate degree, living in that building. I'm very proud of that. Thank you very much.
Transit-oriented developments, do you see them as a problem, and what can be done about it if it is a problem?
Well, I'd like to take a look and see how well this first one that is at Division and Ashland, what the future holds for it as far as what type of parking will be available. What I do have issue with is folks that have lived in this community for 30 plus years, or have even recently just moved to this community, chose this area because it's a neighborhood, it's a community. I want to keep it that way, so I don't know necessarily if this is going to benefit the community without the fact that, so that's pretty much my position as to the transit-oriented development. I'd like to see how it plays out, but at first I would still also say that I'm leaning towards being against it just because of the that it takes away from the community, in my opinion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And then Ann will be next on this one.
Thank you. First of all, I want to make it clear that I will not take developer money that's tied to any development or any type of zoning request in the first ward. While I like the concept of TOD buildings, because obviously I like things that are good for the environment, good for the community, what I have seen is, I was a past president of East Village Association, and our group, we were instrumental in improving Division Street and many of our areas, but we are also suffering today from many of our successes in poorly built and overbuilt developments, in the loss of historic buildings, and that is continuing now into other areas such as Logan Square. And I have to say, I'm very concerned because we have such beautiful, beautiful communities, great diversity, and I don't want any of these communities lose their flavor. This is why people like to come to live in East Village or Ukrainian Village or Logan Square, because of what's already there. And I'm all about right-sized development, realistic development, development that fits within the community. And my issue with TODs right now, as it's written, is it's pushing things too fast before the infrastructure can be there in place, before the community's ready. I saw firsthand how I lost my neighbors, seniors and families, working families who had been there for 50 years, 60 years, 20 years, because they couldn't afford the property taxes. And it totally and fundamentally changed my community. Now, I love my new community. I love my new neighbors such as Rhonda Locke and Andrew, but I miss some of my other neighbors too. And so I've met with many great community members in Wicker Park and Logan Square, Ukrainian Village, and they say the same thing. And we need an alderman that stands first for our people, not like Joe, who takes a lot from our developers. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I apologize for taking the mic. I misinterpreted Elaine's like cutting the throat, so sorry for that. But as alderman, I am absolutely for sound developments and development that respects the input of the community and that also is compatible with the community in which it's being built. Now, I think a major part of my platform, which is on my website and which I also shared with the Wicker Park Forum, is that I would like to craft master plans, a collaboration between the residents, the local businesses in the chamber, and craft how does that neighborhood want to grow? What type of development do they want? What type of businesses should they be trying to attract? I think this is important because through collaboration, I think then you're not responding to one-off developments. What concerns me about some of the developments that we've recently heard of is that, again, they're one-off and nobody's looking at it from a master plan. I'm not hearing anybody talk about the Milwaukee corridor plan that a lot of time and money went into it in 2008 between California and Western. Now, in transit-oriented development, TODs, absolutely in favor of density. But again, how does that fit in with the community? Is it the right size? Does it have the character? Is the community that it's surrounding, does it have a proper fit? And so what I would like to do with TOD ordinance is actually put some additional structure around it. First of all, I would point out that the East Village Association PD group, Scott Rapp being one, I don't know if Scott's here tonight, but there was a lot of time and effort put into TOD starting actually all the way back in 2007. So we have to give credit that the East Village Community Group, of which I wasn't involved during those years, but they were the ones that were actually working with Manny for the concept of it. And we can't lose sight of the community that helped to bring that here. But again, again, I referred to the most recent EVA meeting, and this alderman said that, yes, people keep saying he takes developer, but nobody's bringing some specifics. Well, I would like to bring out some specifics. Fifield, a development property.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of passion there. Okay, great. The next question is, Andrew will be answering this one first. This is according to the 2010 U.S. Census, Latinos make up 43% of the first ward. What services or issues are unique to Latinos, and how have you or will you plan on servicing this population?
It's a great question. It's a great question. Some of you may know I'm an attorney. I'd say 70% of my clients are Hispanic. So it's very important to me what goes on in their day-to-day life and what's going on with the city government for helping the men and women in our community. So what I'd like to see, and my experience has been through the relationships I built with my clients and with friends and family members, or friends that live in the community. A major issue that I'd like to see is more jobs. Jobs are very important in the Hispanic community. I'm going to do all I can to make sure that there's more jobs in the first ward. Trying to promote businesses. I agree with Joe in one aspect that I would have raised the minimum wage as well. because I think it's important for men and women to have support their family when it comes to their day-to-day living and their costs. The previous minimum wage is just not enough to make ends meet. And that's, again, so the Hispanic community is very near and dear to my heart. If elected alderman, I can tell you this, I'll make a pledge right now. My Spanish is not that good, but if I'm your next alderman, I can tell you I'll be speaking Spanish 4 years from now. So thank you.
Thank you. This next question is, Joe, can you answer this one? Thanks.
Gracias por su pregunta. Yo soy concejal Joe Moreno. Mis abuelos son de San Luis Potosí, México. Mi papá es mexicano, mi mamá es americana. Mi esposa Selena es boricua, sí. Entonces, and I'll translate in a minute. Entonces, muy importante es latinos en primero distrito, ¿ok? Es las calles, Barcero, city services, streets and sanitation, trabajos, as my friend says, muy importante. Pero escuelas, muy importante to latinos. So what I said is, thank you for asking the question. My name is Joe Moreno. My grandparents immigrated here from Mexico, had my father here. My mom is born here on a small farm. Latinos have the same things that we all have. They want good schools. They want clean streets. They want a safe community. They want to be able to talk to their alderman in the language they prefer, right? So if you come to my ward night, and actually that number is a little higher because that's based on voting age population, not total population. I just met last night with the Ramirez family. Senora Ramirez crying to me because People's Gas, who I wish I had more time to go at that company, was threatening to cut their heat off yesterday. And I can't sit there and not say, and I'm glad Andrew's going to learn Spanish, I appreciate that. But if you're going to run for a ward that you know is a majority Latino ward, I think you should already know a little bit. In fact, you should know a lot. And the Latino community, the Latino community in the first ward is thriving. The Latino community in the city is growing, as you know. The last thing that's very important to them is immigration reform. And I'm a leader on that too, so thank you. Sorry for going over.
We appreciate it. It was my fault for not interrupting you sooner, being like, what exactly services are you trying, whatever. My bad. Okay, great. Rhonda. Okay. So the question is, what services or issues are unique to Latinos, and how have you or will you plan on serving this population?
Also, my response as alderman is very similar to the incumbents, that I think the needs of the Latino families is very similar to all of our needs. Again, good schools, jobs, economic development has got to be a critical component. I feel like okay, sorry, it sounded like it was going off. One key thing, though, I would like to remap. Between 2000 and 2010, the Latino population dramatically dropped in the first ward. And I was in the office working for the alderman during that time of the remap process. And I absolutely believe that process needs to be reformed. This alderman was concerned about his position in the Latino caucus and dramatically changed.
Can we talk about experience you had providing services to Latino populations, and how will you plan on servicing the Latino population?
Absolutely. Like I did say that I see the needs as very similar to all of our needs. Good quality service. I will establish a responsive office. I think I already gave you in my first answer that. So making sure that we take care of potholes, take care of rat requests, and so ensuring our schools are in economic development, and ensuring that communities feel safe. And the one thing, though, I would point out, because I am walking door to door, a lot of Latino families, they have the exact same needs as everybody else. So I'm not just assuming this is in talking to the families. And first, as any good alderman would do, is I'll have a Spanish speaker, and I'll also have resources for other languages as well.
Thank you. Anne, all you?
Thank you. Thank you. So, my family, we're also immigrants. As I was stating earlier, when I went to school, I didn't speak any English, which is the plight of many of our Latino immigrants and other immigrants from various backgrounds. And I'm here today because of my wonderful teachers and speech therapists and my fully funded public school that they were able to help me learn English in a safe environment that helped me grow and achieve success today. I wouldn't be here today without that, and I take it very much to heart. I've been a civil rights attorney for almost 19 years. I fight for people's rights, especially Latino families, black families, women, all sorts of people when they are being discriminated against in the workplace, in public accommodations, and I have fought countries, nations who have done this as well. And one of the things that I'm firmly rooted in is because we have to serve our immigrant community and our communities that don't speak English, they shouldn't be disenfranchised just because English isn't their first language. I'm one of those people too. And so I started one of the first pro bono legal clinics in Chinatown. It is one of the best run in the Midwest. 99% of the people there do not speak English. And we serve.
Can you focus mainly on the issues unique to Latinos in the first ward, and specifically, issues that you see, how will you service them in the first ward, Latino population?
I'm sorry, I can't hear your question.
Can you focus on, specifically issues and services that are unique to Latinos in the first ward, whether it's affordable housing, schools, daycare, any, concrete issues?
Sure, I'll give you a specific example. So this summer, as I was knocking on doors talking to a lot of communities, I actually met a wonderful gentleman, Mr. Gomez, whose child goes to Chopin, and he said to me, he says, Ms. Shaw, my wife is bipolar, she's suicidal, and she needs her medication, but we're poor, I got laid off at my job. Why did they close our mental health facilities? Can you help me? And he said, why did they close my schools? And he was very upset. Is it because we're not as important? And I said to him, I said, this is why I'm running. Because low-income families, Latino families, all the working families of the first ward, they need these basic services. When we start neglecting and hurting the people who are the least able to bear these burdens.
Thank you. Appreciate it. To our fifth question before going on to the more general debate type question. So this question is, Anne will be the first one to answer this one. Part of the Streets for Cycling 2020 plan, which is going on right now, and they're also doing protected lanes, is expanding, the city's exploring the idea of expanding barrier protected bike lanes on Milwaukee between Ashland and Western, going down there, passing through Wicker Park's main stretch. It could require removing a lane of parking in prime Wicker Park stretch packed with retail shops and restaurants. Would you support bringing protected bike lanes to Milwaukee Avenue between Ashland and Western? And if so, do you have plans for adding more parking spaces to the neighborhood, either off-site or to make up for those spaces? So basically, do you support bike lanes on Milwaukee Avenue between Ashland and Western if it meant removing a lane of parking?
Wow, so it's funny that you bring this up because I've actually had this conversation with a number of business owners and community residents as well as bicyclists. So Milwaukee is become a very, very busy thoroughfare, and it's not very wide because it's angular because it used to be one of the old cow paths. So that's why Chicago, we have these wonderful angular streets that get us across town pretty quickly. But the problem we have is we've actually had a number of dooring accidents and fatalities along that stretch of Milwaukee Avenue. But we also have to keep in mind we have more than, I think, 2 or 3 large concert venues as well. And there are a lot of people who drive into those venues to see shows or seek entertainment. And a lot of the businesses, although they do like the idea of bike lanes, they also have patrons who need to park. So really, there's no really easy answer because, I love biking and I love safe bike lanes, and I really, my husband and I, we like to try to bike as much as we can. I'll be honest with you. I mean, there are areas I won't bike because I'm afraid I'm going to get hit by a car, like Ashland Avenue. But at the same time, I see the frustration of car owners who have to get to work, or people who want to come to the city. They're afraid they're going to hit a bicyclist. So really, we have to do, I'd have to look at this 2020 plan. Part of my platform is a 10-year plan to assess these types of things and see if we can work with the community to come up with a solution that, works for everybody. It may not necessarily be on Milwaukee. We may look at other areas that we could support the bike lanes that follow along the same pathway, but, that's something I'm definitely looking into, and I'm already trying to search for a viable solution.
Thank you. Thank you. And I should have mentioned this in my question. The reason why Milwaukee is cited is because that's considered a spoke route going downtown as a main thoroughway street.
Yep.
Rhonda?
Oh, okay.
Well, again, as alderman, I would be looking at the city resources. The CDOT's got a very established transportation engineers, and I would seek input from the community. That question is quite difficult to answer in absence. I too have been talking to retailers or businesses and neighbors, primarily around the BRT. And there is a significant concern about losing parking. So I am very concerned about the rich retail corridor that a lot of local independents have built along Milwaukee corridor to lose an entire strip of parking. And yet I am not in favor of parking garages. I am very much in favor of pedestrian zoned stretches where you don't have to worry about a car coming out of a parking garage. So, so I think that, this is a very tough question. In absence of hearing from experts, of which I am, you don't want me designing your streets, but I didn't know how to go get expert answers. That I think there need to be a lot more input before saying unequivocally, without the input of experts, I would advocate that we look at alternate routes because again, that stretch is so congested.
Thank you. Andrew? Thank you.
I agree with what Rhonda said as far as that specific location. I'd like to have a little bit more evidence or more research as to whether or not that's the best location for adding more bike lanes. Because number one, I am for promoting health and I am in promoting a greener city. I just don't know if that's going to be the right location for that. I know folks want to commute from their house to if they work downtown or vice versa. So I would like to see more bike paths. That specific area is pretty congested, and I would defer to the experts as to whether or not that's going to be sustainable. But I'm always open for other alternative routes. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, near and dear to my heart. I know some of my opponents said they're tough questions. When you're alderman, you have to make tough decisions. Everything's not easy. So I think that's why we didn't hear a lot of answers, but I'll give you some answers to some things that we've done in the first ward. The Divvy bike sharing program, which has been a huge success. Myself and Alderman Amaya Pawar are the only aldermen that put menu money in to bring additional stations in areas where the city didn't want to put them because we had low-income people there, right? Secondly, Milwaukee Avenue, specifically to the question. We put the first on-street bike corral on Milwaukee Avenue, right at Milwaukee, Damon, and Division. In the city, the first one went there. I was able to go to Sevilla, Spain, a few years ago to look at their protected bike lane system. Asked experts, talked about this issue. 8 years ago, Sevilla was behind us, right, in terms of bike lanes and whatnot. Their congestion was so bad, what they decided to do as a city is close their downtown central, so it would be like us closing Michigan Avenue, and they put in protected bike lanes throughout the city. Now, I'm not advocating for that, but the Sevilla's experience is this. 80% of people now bike. You see seniors on three-wheelers going to the grocery store. You see men and women in suits going to school on bikes. It's amazing what they did there. So if we're really going to talk about the environment, we're really going to talk about cycling, if you really support that, then you need to support protected bike lanes because our bicyclists need protection out there. They do get doored, they do get hurt, but as biking continues to grow in the city of Chicago, we have to look at that. I've put the most bike lanes in of any alderman in the city. Now my wife sometimes disagrees with me when she gets a cyclist that cuts her off. She goes, you don't want to see her. However, it's the cyclists that aren't obeying the law, and Active Transportation Alliance, who I'm very supportive of me, is out there making sure they do. Thank you very much.
just great answers from everybody. So basically this is the question number 6, and this is kind of, you get like a minute and a half. And it's a citywide question that I will also be asking the second ward candidates. And then after I ask this, I'll switch the mic, and then Elaine will be asking a citywide question to all 4 of you. So this is the sort of like the broader citywide question. So some aldermen have pledged to not accept monetary contributions from folks that have pending matters coming before city council that require aldermanic approval, such as developers needing zoning changes, billboard companies requiring permits, or bars seeking late night liquor licenses. If elected, would you commit to not taking contributions from those who have pending matters coming before you, the community, and the city? If not, what is the benefit of accepting campaign donations from those that have matters coming before you, and how would you use that money? So in this order, we're going to start with Joe.
Oh, great, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, our ethics ordinance does not allow for aldermen to take contributions from anything that comes up with a city matter, but I think you need to go further with that. And I'll give a specific example. The developers that are developing Lathrop Homes technically do not have anything coming up before the city council. But we've been working on that for the last 4 years, and I don't think it's appropriate, even though we're working on it, it's not technically a part of the city council's agenda to do that. I will say this, though. Developers, like everybody else, they have companies that are employing people. And if there's criticism that I've made a decision based on money I take, I'll take that criticism. But I've spent, again, $140,000. And I've gotten emails from Rhonda Locke that asked why I didn't give another $100,000 to make the developer give it to her park. I've given Rhonda Locke $3,500 over the years from that committee for her to do work in the first ward. Now, don't come here and say that you're against developer money because you're in a political election and taken the money in the past. I don't recall one time when I gave that money, not one time when I wrote those checks to her did she say, Joe, did this come from developers? Not one time. So, I think it's, hey, look, disagree with me politically and let's have a political debate. The hypocrisy on this issue is what I have a problem with. The hypocrisy on this issue.
Okay, we're done on that. Rhonda, why don't you go next?
Okay, she told me so. Sorry,
Okay,
I wasn't
I'm going to switch the order if you want.
Are we done?
Yeah, this is just a minute on this one, or a minute and a half about.
I didn't
so
hear the click, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little shorter.
Okay, sorry. Okay. First of all, $3,500 is less than 1% of the amount of money that this alderman has raised. And again, that is for 4 Circus in the Park ads. So I apologize if I did not ask, but it's not for me. It's not his money to give to me. It's for the park. Commercial Park, I have been a president and involved for 10 years with this park, a long time, and we've helped to bring at least 4 playgrounds to the area through our volunteer efforts. But I think that is a little different than, say, Shambles, which is a 4 a.m. liquor license in the area. This alderman has taken nearly $16,000 from that person alone for a 4 a.m., which was a controversial topic. Another topic, Fifield development on Chicago Avenue was overruled. The community was overruled against opposition, and there
you only
was
got a minute,
okay.
Would you accept donations from developers?
No,
And if so, how would you use that money?
Donations from developer. The $4,000, which the limit in the ethics ordinance is very clear, a maximum of $1,500 per year, including any entities. And pending is 6 months before anything even goes into committee. So this is a very clear ordinance, and again, I think we need to look at it, and I commit to not taking developer donations.
Andrew?
What?
Andrew, yeah.
No, I will not. If I'm the next alderman, I will not take donations from developers and any folks that, I will not take donations from developers or anyone who's looking for permit approval. So I just feel, in my personal opinion, it'll be a potential, well, I think it's a conflict, and that's why I will not do it. So plain and simple.
Well,
And
I
by the way, it's not
already,
just developers, it's anybody. So.
Correct. For permits.
oh,
Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
No, absolutely not. I take ethics extremely seriously. I was appointed by Tony Preckwinkle to the Cook County Board of Ethics, and we took our job very seriously. In fact, we were the first board in almost 30 years that actually filed a lawsuit against an elected official for ethics violations, which is still pending to this day. This is how seriously I take that. And I've spent my career fighting injustice, and this is something that I feel very, very strongly about, and this is actually one of the big reasons why I'm sitting at this table today.
Thank you, and
She just said thank you. I'm mic'd now.
yes,
Okay, so questions, and I will tell you the order. The first one will be Andrew, okay? The claim by the mayor and superintendent that crime is going down have been challenged on the basis of such points as population change and miss and reclassifying cases to lower categories of crime. So the question, what 2 specific things will you do that are not already being done by the mayor or superintendent to improve safety and fight crime?
Thank you. And along with city services, another top concern of mine is safety. So what I'd like to do is to have cops walking the beat, building a better relationship with the community, building a rapport, having the community be more involved, that they're going to be more inclined. If they see something, they'll say something. Once a relationship will be established by the police, walking the beat, do everything I can to have more police officers hired in addition to the current load. As to another way of trying to alleviate some of the safety in the, or to alleviate some of the crime, to improve safety, is to also reach out to the at-risk youth, have more programs for them to get them off the streets. So it's kind of a reciprocal strategy. So you need the police, you need the community involved, and you need some programs that will actually benefit the at-risk youth and keep them off the streets. So, thank you.
Okay. And second respondent, Mr. Joe Morano.
Thank you, Elaine. The hardworking men and women at the Chicago Police Department, in the first ward, so you know, crime is down on homicides 33% in 4 years, robbery 35%, aggravated assault 27%, aggravated battery down 21%, burglary down 28%, theft down 22%, motor vehicle theft down 60%, and arson down 50%. Now, that's not despite the football. We have still more work to do. But the trend in the first ward, at least, I can't speak for the other wards, is a reduction in crime. There's a lot of things an alderman can do. Some aldermen say call 911. I have a responsibility. I am not the police, but I have a responsibility as your alderman to do what I can. And one of the things we've been very successful at, when we have a problem on a block, we can usually identify it to maybe 1 or 2 houses, most times. We have closed down 6 houses, either torn them down physically or removed the gang element that's in there because I have asked for inspections of those houses. And why that's important is because a lot of these houses usually have problems with their houses in terms of city permits, inspections. And if the guy that goes there to inspect it feels threatened, he can bring the police officers with him. We've been able to close 6 of those down. We've also, as you know, have brought in the sheriff's office into the old district police station that was costing you millions of dollars and is out of date. And the Chicago Police Department is now using that for a satellite office per my request. We have to continue that, continue the progress we've made, and continue fighting for it. Thank you.
I would just like to remind you of the question. What 2 specific things will you do that are not already being done by the mayor to improve safety and fight crime? And Rhonda, you are up.
Okay, I've already mentioned that for 2 years I was in the alderman's office as a staffer. 18 months of that time, I was the liaison for the police. So I have had firsthand experience going to every single CAPS, sitting in ComStat meetings with McCarthy, sitting across the table and talking about best practices in CAPS offices. So I do think that this is something that is very critical. The two specific things, I agree, we need to hire more officers. Specifically, during the course of closing of the 13th district, I helped to facilitate, all the aldermen got McCarthy to come and talk about what was going to happen when the 13th and 12th was closing. At that point, there was a commitment for 524 sworn officers, and I have letter from McCarthy's office that I can share with you to support that. A recent FOIA that I just got shows that we are only at 340 officers in just our own little corner of the city. So we need more officers, and putting them on overtime is stretching them and not putting our community first. A second big failed promise during that time, during the closing of the 13th, a commitment was made for a satellite office. And just in time for election season, an announcement came out that a satellite office was coming to the former 13th. That was disputed in an Our Urban Times article with a quote from the commander that it was not a satellite office. You and I can't walk in there, you and I can't go ask the police for help. It's a computer that the officers can use, which is important. So the two things I would did.
And
Thank you, Elaine. First of all, I have the confidence from the Chicago Police Sergeants Association. They endorsed me at the end of the year that I know how to deal with public safety issues. And today I found out that I got the endorsement and support of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 7. Which is our Chicago Police Department. And what are the two things I would do? Well, certainly I wouldn't have closed the 2 police stations down and called that my proudest moment. And I would not have cut the number of CAPS programs. So the CAPS meetings under the new budget, and I hate to have to say this, we're lucky in the former 13th district areas to have them every other month. There are many places in the city that have them quarterly, and some that no longer have them at all. And these were all budget issues that Joe approved and voted for. So when we talk about the crime numbers going down, I mean, we know that those numbers aren't real. We know. I've walked the areas, I've talked to people. I myself have been a victim of almost a break-in to my house. And for the first time in almost 15 years of living in my community, I've had to call the police, and thank God, you know, the officers came and they rescued me from that situation. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So I've already stated before that I would increase the number of police officers, make our CAPS programs more robust so that we have more community involvement. Thank you.
so this concludes the first ward, and we appreciate all your time and effort to come here, and all of your time and effort to come here, and we know that you're going to stay for the second ward. So this ward geographically is so disparate, or possibly desperate, that it is being dubbed like a map of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Its revenue streams and infrastructure needs are equally disparate. So the question is, what will be your process for fairly deciding how to distribute menu money and other revenues and resources, and how will constituents be included in those decisions? And the first person to speak is Cornell.
Sure. Are we on? I don't think we're on. We're not on? Okay.
A little technical, whoops.
I hope this isn't counting against my time. Oh, there we go.
Just don't touch this push button.
Okay. Did you want to repeat the question, Elaine, or?
You want me to repeat the question?
Okay, you guys are good? Okay. First, thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm Cornell Wilson, and the question regards how we're going to redistribute resources throughout the entire ward. The hard part is you all have been done a disservice. All of the second ward voters have been left with a ward that does not reflect any one particular community. And so we now have to work with 3 distinct regions: the east side of the ward, the west side of the ward, and the central part of the ward. And so my goal from day one is going to be working with each and every community group, whether it's the East Village Association, whether it's Wicker Park Committee, whether it's North Dearborn Association, and ensuring that resources are allocated equally and fairly amongst the areas of the ward. Because although we have different needs, although we have different desires for how our ward wants to look and how it wants to be at the end of the day, we want to ensure that you have an alderman that works fairly on behalf of all the ward citizens. I live at 1130 North Dearborn on the east side of the ward, but that doesn't mean I don't care about the west side of the ward. I will ensure that we make sure that you have access to all the resources. You will have an alderman who's going to be holding office hours, pushing out information, and making sure that you are taken care of.
Sorry, Cornell, but that's not totally the question.
Sure.
The question is, how will you do this, and will you include constituents?
Of course, and I apologize if I didn't explain that part of that is going to be working with the local community groups, assessing their needs, assessing what's going on with them, and ensuring that we're developing a vision for that particular corner of the ward, for that particular block of the ward, for the entirety of the ward if possible. So that means listening. That's my process. It's going to be showing up to your community meetings at any of them and listening. It's being an active participant and ensuring that your voice is heard. Right now, unfortunately, the second ward doesn't have a voice because it's so new, because it was done to the detriment to get one alderman out, and now that we're left with these different pieces of a ward that we have to make whole. So the process will be working with the community groups and listening and ensuring that your voice is heard.
Thank you. And the second person is Alex Pattison.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Wicker Park Lutheran, for having us here. Thank you, Wicker Park Committee, for organizing it. Elaine, Alyssa, thanks for having us and being our moderators. This is Democracy in Action. Thank you all for being here. I'm privileged to be a part of it. I'm Alex Pattison. I'm running for alderman in this crazy mapped ward that I think looks more like a transformer. But the ways that I want to do this do involve constituents directly. I would like to will organize 2 things. First of all, a sister neighborhood program within the ward to connect neighborhood groups to each other. There are a lot of reasons to do this that we'll probably talk about with regard to other questions. But what I want is for neighborhoods to be able to understand the needs of each other's neighborhoods. Streeterville right now has not a lot of sense of what goes on in Ukrainian Village, and the reverse is also true. So we're going to have to work on that and connect neighbors that way. The second thing I want to organize, or will organize as your alderman, is a Second Ward Volunteer Corps program. And that program will help connect neighbors in the same way. And my hope is that you will have an understanding of each other's needs. And when I make the decision as to where that menu money is spent, and I will make that decision because I believe that that's what you elect aldermen to do, you will have an understanding of why I made the decision that I made. Really quickly, on the east side, I do sometimes worry about the number of population. I mean, 70% of this ward lives east of the Chicago River. So we have to make sure that we're still representing the western communities, this one, Bucktown, Ukrainian Village. But in the end, I'll make the decision with as much input from citizens in those 2 organizations as possible.
Thank you, and I would just remind you that Wicker Park is part of that, but hey.
I thought I said Wicker Park. My apologies.
Thank you, and I too would like to thank the good folks here, especially Pastor Jason for hosting, and the members of WPC, the board members and volunteers alike, and Alicia and Elaine for serving as moderators. My name is Brian Hopkins, and I get this question quite a bit. The geography that encompasses this animal we call the new Second Ward is very unique, and it's generated quite a bit of conversation over the last couple of years. I think that there is a geography that divides the Second Ward because the neighborhoods are physically far apart. But what's more important than that is what unites us as a ward. The residents of all the communities in the Second Ward expect and demand good services from their aldermen. We all care about our neighborhoods, the people in this room here especially. I know you care about your community. That's why you're here tonight, because you want to make an informed choice about who's going to represent you going forward. I plan to be your alderman, and one of the first things that I plan to do is ask for a doubling of the allocation of menu money. Now, most of us do know what menu money is, but for those of you that don't, it's a pot of funds. It totals about $1.3 million that each alderman gets on an annual basis. Well, the problem caused by the new map, we haven't had any menu money spent in the neighborhoods that encompass the new second ward in quite a long time. There's a severe backlog of service needs in this ward. I've been out knocking on doors in this neighborhood since July, and I've heard from many of you about the need to fix the sidewalks, the potholes, trim the trees, fix the streetlights, deal with rodent control. A lot of these things have fallen through the cracks because of the confusion about the new ward. We have a backlog. We need to catch up. I'm prepared to do that on day one. I will seek a doubling of the aldermanic menu money for this ward. The other aldermen may object, but when they look at what's happened, this ward is the only one out of 50 wards in the city that has really been shortchanged on menu money allocation. It's unfair, it needs to stop, and as your alderman, I pledge to change that.
Stacy.
Thank you, Elaine, and thank you also to Jason, Wicker Park Lutheran. Thank you to Wicker Park Committee. It's great to be here among a lot of friends in the audience. Infrastructure issues. I have a lot of experience by working, just recently leaving the Alderman's office in Second Ward. I've driven this ward many times with the Streets and Sands head. I actually have 10 pages of notes at home of things that I'd like to see done already in the ward. Upon election and before I'm inaugurated, I already would be driving around with the Streets and Sands head and doing a comprehensive survey and putting together what I think are the dire needs right now. I was just talking to a gentleman the other night. He said Hoyne Avenue from the 1400 to 1600 block is like a war zone. So there are certain needs we're going to have to address right away. Sinkholes, things like that that could lead to larger problems.
Excuse me. The question is how you would go about this process.
Getting to that. So I would do a list of infrastructure needs, and then I would bring it to the community and see and gather their input and see if I'm on point of the things I think need to be fixed. I'll learn about any new issues that I think need to be addressed, and then from there we'll figure out how to allocate the $1.3 million. And $1.3 million sounds like a lot of money. It really is not. A sidewalk alone to repave is $50,000. And I also would like to look at how much we're paying some of these private contractors we are hiring to do some of this work, because we are on a shoestring budget here. I love the idea Brian has of increasing or doubling the menu dollars, but realistically, we've had to decrease. We have been getting a decrease in menu dollars almost every year in the Aldermanic offices. So the idea is to stretch it as far as we can and do the most with what we got. Thank you.
Thank you. And fifth is Steve. Are you there somewhere? There you are.
So, thank you again for everybody being here tonight. Special thanks to CAN TV for covering the event and streaming it live. It's very nice to have the crew out here. And let me say real quick, thank you all for being here. It is tricky to listen to 6 people give answers to the same question, so we appreciate your patience and hearing everybody out up here. So the ward shape is the biggest issue when you try to figure out all these different communities and the needs of each community, because it's basically 9 different communities that are stretched thin between this very undemocratically designed ward. I believe I'm uniquely qualified to look at the issue of trying to make fair and balanced decisions for each side of the ward, because I've worked with so many different communities around us right now. Across all of West Town, I've already been working with neighborhood leaders, business leaders, trying to unite the communities on working together or trying to find ways, even without spending any money, by simply using our efforts together and collectively taking control of our own neighborhoods. There's a lot of different issues I could talk about with that, but I'll stick right now to the budget. Basically, I want to make sure that everybody feels educated in the ward. Right now, I'm writing a second ward newsletter every week because I'm making myself trained to know that every neighborhood needs to be represented. So I meet people, I talk about everything that happens. I don't want to repeat what everybody else said. We're all having the same kind of experience. But specifically, I want to bring participatory budgeting to the second ward.
I apologize for interrupting here, but the question is, what will be your process for fairly determining this, and will you include the constituents?
Participatory budgeting. Everybody would have a chance to vote on a project that affects their immediate neighborhood.
Okay.
Thanks.
And last is Vita.
Everybody can hear me? All right. First of all, I want to say Merry Christmas to all my Ukrainian friends here. Merry Christmas, everybody. I know it's your Christmas. I want to acknowledge that. Also, I want to say thank you all for being here. That means you care. And Elaine, thank you so much for doing this. It really means a lot. I want to go on the record and tell you something. This map is not your fault. It isn't. You should not be suffering for that map. As your alderman, I will make sure you get the city services that you deserve. $1.2 million, as Brian said. That's our ward. That's our money. That's not my money. That's your money. So why wouldn't you be involved in spending it? So when I become the alderman, I will go to every neighborhood association. I will give every one of your voices to tell me what is it that your neighborhood needs. And that's my attitude, and that's how we're gonna get it done. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is about land use and development. And the first person will be Vita. Will you create a development plan for the ward, and how? And will it include TODs? And what part will community organizations have in the process?
One of the most important jobs that alderman has is to protect the character of our neighborhood. How does an alderman do that? Alderman does that by being close and coming to every community and association and meet them, see what the needs of the neighborhood is. I respect people like Elaine that have been involved in the development. You as a people, you are the one who are paying taxes. So we have gonna involve every one of you in developing. Yes, I make the final decision, but I promise you, it will not happen without your input and the community input.
And will it include TODs?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the process is just going to the various community organizations, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Every community organ. You guys have done so much for so many years. You have to be involved in this process.
Thank you. Steve?
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so land use. The interesting thing is what you see are the differences in development on each side of the ward. Now, over here, I assume a lot of you are local. You know that some of the issues are tear downs and quick 3-story, 4-story, 4 stories go up. One of the issues there is materials. I've been talking to a lot of architects about you make a design, you design a building, you want to make it with the right materials that'll last long enough so somebody has a 30-year mortgage, their home doesn't fall apart on them. One of the things is that in the developer side, sometimes they'll cut back and use different materials that will then cause a lot of problems for people who buy into these houses. 7 years down the line, you might have an entire wall already degraded where you have to do major reconstruction on the outside of the building. So I want to see a lot more accountability for material use, which is not something that we're doing a lot right now as a city. It's a conversation that needs to happen more often. But first and foremost, you're never going to see me take developer money. I don't ever compromise community over developers.
I'm sorry, you're going off point here. The question is, will you create a development plan? We've got another land use question coming up, so will you create a development plan for the ward, and how? And will it include TODs? And what part, how will you get the community involved?
Yeah, you have to forgive me. There's a lot to talk about with the second ward. The development plan will be to work directly with community organizations to make sure that if there is a plan that comes in, that the community will have a chance to have a hearing, a debate, a conversation about it. And anybody that knows me knows that I put a lot of effort into community discussion. So you'll always have open accountability with my office and any kind of development. So that's my development plan, is to have open accountability. TOD, we've got the Gold Coast Jewel plan over on the east side of the ward at Clark and Division. One of the things that's happening there is they're building right next to the Red Line stop. So you're going to see in the next 4 years a major development happen on that side. You see a lot of these plans come along, and there's a lot of good points to making them, that you want to take less cars off the road. But in reality, you have to make sure that it works for the community and it's not being overbuilt.
Thank you. And the next person is Stacy.
Thank you, Elaine. When it comes to development, the only approach I will take is community-led development. This has stemmed from my years working for Preservation Chicago. I was a community advocate advocating for our historic places and spaces. I'm in favor of long-term development planning. I think it probably has to go by community, each different neighborhood. For those that don't have long-term plans in place, I would like to put in 5-year growth plans, so then we're not bringing in project after project. We're going to look at a comprehensive whole, and then that way we can look at the character of the neighborhood we have, the framework in which that development should come into. And I just think in government, too many times we're looking at what is happening today. We're not doing long-term planning on how is this going to affect our neighborhood 25 years from now. Do we have the infrastructure in place? Do we have the transit options available if we are putting in TODs? One of my issues right now is overdevelopment in some neighborhoods. Lincoln Park, I actually see a friend here from there. With transit-oriented development, you have to have, make sure we have a strong transit system in place. Too many times, especially at Clark and Division right now, you have to wait for 4 trains just to get downtown during rush hour. So that's a concern. And also, I'm the only one of the candidates here that has pledged not to take developer dollars. I believe that paid influence should not be part of any decision-making when it comes to development projects. You should have fair-minded decisions. And I would also encourage people to see where the money is flowing into in this race. And I do have some opponents that are taking quite large contributions from developers and special interests. So we have to look out. I'm going to be looking out for your interests. It shows in my D2s. But, you know, words and actions should come together. And I feel strongly that I'm the right person due to my community background. Thank you.
Brian?
The answer is absolutely, unequivocally, yes. I am, I believe, the only candidate in this race that has actually worked on a community master plan for a neighborhood. I've done not 1 but 2 during my 16 years representing one of the neighborhoods in the 2nd Ward. I have experience at doing this, and not only do I commit and pledge to come up with a master community development plan for every neighborhood in the 2nd Ward, but I'm actually excited about the idea, and I'm looking forward to going through the process once again. During that process, the community organizations will be at the forefront. All stakeholders in the neighborhood need to be involved in it, not just residents, but commercial interests as well, institutional interests. You have to bring everyone together. It's all of our community. We all share a stake in it, but I believe residents should be first and foremost. There's more of us than there are of them. So the residents' needs are always paramount, but you absolutely have to have a master plan for a community. That gives you the strength to tell developers no when they come to the community with an idea that might be profitable for them, but would have a detrimental impact on the neighborhoods. And frankly, this area is really ground zero for neighborhoods for sale. We all know what happened here. It should never be allowed to happen again. It's an example of what happens when development interests are allowed to do whatever they want, unfettered, do things that are out of character, out of scale with the community. I would never allow that to happen. As alderman, I would pledge to pick up where Alderman Wagasback left off. I think he did a pretty good job at turning things around. They were clearly headed in the wrong direction. So I would very much look forward to overseeing an inclusive and transparent process to come up with a master plan for every neighborhood in the 2nd Ward, and then the next phase is sticking to it.
Thank you, Brian. Alex? By the way, just so you understand, I set this all up so no question is asked in the same order. So that's why you're passing that sucker around.
We appreciate that, Elaine. Oh, am I on?
Hit the push button in the front. No, the very front.
Push. Okay.
Got it.
Got it. No? Yes, okay. Yes, my answer to the question, the first question, part of the question is I would have a development plan. I think I touched that. And one of those things that has to be considered in this ward in particular is, and that I'm happy that at least this part of the map worked out for us, is we have a real problem with east-west transit on North Avenue. And it is the one street that connects all of us. And I think most of you are aware, many of you are aware, that there will be, or potentially could be, a major redevelopment in the Finkel-Steel land right off Clybourne and North. So whatever we do, there has to be a comprehensive part of that plan that takes into consideration all of the transportation needs for us and people around us who got cut out of our ward. I support transit-oriented density, and I want to make a clarification on the Gold Coast development, North and, Division and State, Division and Clark. I spoke to the developer there and the lawyer at a community meeting, his lawyer, and they said they didn't take advantage of parking spaces or of transit-oriented density at that building, and so because they believe parking spaces are required for every unit. I actually would ask developers to take advantage of transit-oriented density and reduce the number of cars and parking in a building wherever possible, because that makes our neighborhoods more livable and walkable and easier to get around. Another priority of mine, community organizations will absolutely be a part of that process in determining the development plan, but I also want to be very clear that I will make affordable housing a priority in that plan wherever possible. I'm dedicated to that concept. I believe that our city is a vibrant one when we protect people, and so that will be a priority of mine. And the last thing I want to say, was that 1 click? 2 clicks? When it comes to being victimized by poor building materials, it's a critical issue, especially on the west side of this ward, and I have experienced it.
Okay, Cornelia, grab the mic, please.
Okay, let me just answer the question. Yes, I will work with every community to develop a plan for the ward, and yes, I'll based off transit-oriented development. But let's add some nuance in there. The key is to understand that in my side of the ward, in my church at Fourth Presbyterian, across the street is a Hancock building. Across the street from this ward are homes. And so you have to understand that we must defend your idea of what you want this neighborhood to look like, what the central portion of this ward wants to look like. So it's not enough to say I'm going to develop a master plan for the entirety of the ward. That's just not possible. What you must do is work with the local community groups, develop a plan for each section of this ward. You work, whether it's working with North Branch Works, so figure out how you're going to plan for the central part of this ward, working with Wicker Park Committee or East Village Association for this section of the ward, or working with SOAR or North Dearborn Association for the east side of the ward. Working with them on a daily basis to understand that we must develop a plan for each section, listen to those residents, and adhere to it. My background isn't in city government. My background is a little different. I draw on my experience in the Marine Corps. I draw on my time working when I was deployed in Djibouti, Africa, working with people who didn't even speak the same language, developing schools, developing hospitals, understanding what they wanted for their community, and ensuring that the civil affairs teams that were over there respected that we're digging wells and they're not in a sacred area, but we are responsive to their needs. So I will take that experience, I will take my training as an attorney, dig deep into the law, understand what you need, what's best for this community, go forward and defend it, and defend your vision for your community. Thank you.
The next one is also a land use development question. With very little vacant land in this ward, development falls into two types: renovation or tear down. If someone or a developer wanted to develop a parcel of land, what would you do and how would you engage the community on development and zoning issues, including whether you would encourage tear down or renovation? And the first one is Steve.
All right. Thank you very much. And to piggyback a little bit, it is a very confusing ward where you have issues on one side or the other side. What I know most is the west side of the ward because that's where I've been most involved. So directly this last summer, there was a redevelopment of St. John's Church down at Hoyne and Walton in Ukrainian Village. So one of the main things that we did was to try to make sure that first neighbors had a chance to meet with the architect. So we all met outside, this is about 75 people, and we were able to walk around and look at the building and talk about the changes and talk about what was going to be saved and what was going to be changed and torn down for the condo development. That then went to a vote to our community group, which then we approved it because the changes that were made were done with what the community wanted. That's the ideal situation. We had enough time to organize education to be done for neighbors. We did a 4-block radius hand-delivered note to everybody who lived there. So everybody knew what we were going to be doing, what we were going to be voting on. That is the best way to deal when you come into anything being redeveloped, is that you get everybody directly involved on what the process is going to be, understand what's going to be said. So as an alderman, I want to make sure that that happens, because you have to have accountability when you talk about any teardowns or redevelopment. Now, Finkel Steel, that's going to be torn down. I've already had lobbyists come and talk to me about, you know that if that all went residential, think of all the property tax money. But neighbors over there are concerned about that all going residential. It's all this huge plot of industrial land along the river. And the concept is right now that if it stays mostly industrial zoned, you could have not only research and development, but you could also have the potential for working lofts. You can bring jobs into the ward, and you can fix some of those transit issues that we talk about with the 3 main bridges over the river right there. So with that, accountability is key.
Thank you, Steve. And Rita?
No worries.
Everybody's getting their workout tonight. Everybody's getting their workout today, so. Am I too loud, guys? Can you hear me? All right. Renovation. You know, some people have been here, like Elaine, since 1976, and I cannot just come here and take over and just decide everything has to be turned on. This is something that I absolutely need every community, every neighborhood input in this. However, in Gold Coast, there are some park buildings that look like you just walk into Afghanistan, and that's not acceptable. When you turn the building down, you have to have a plan to bring it to life. You cannot just bring the building down and just leave it and hope for the best. So when it comes to tear down, I have to have the community's input in this. When it comes to renovation, as your alderman, I will make sure that renovation goes as sweet and as smooth, as fast as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alex is next, and while you're passing the mic, I will just make a comment that in our area we do have landmark preservation areas, and obviously we're not talking about tear down, thank you very much, in a preserved... I did. No, you're fine. I just wanted to make sure people were thinking that term. No, you're fine. You did good. Okay, Alex.
Is it on? Yes. I would encourage renovation whenever possible, and I think this neighborhood in particular exemplifies exactly why. You look across the street at Hoyne and Lemoyne, those 2 beautiful homes that 5 years ago I would run by them, and they were maybe 6 years ago. I lose track of time. They looked dilapidated and they weren't well cared for, and now they've become beautiful, beautiful homes, the kind that you want to bring people by to see, to show them what Chicago's all about, what Chicago's neighborhoods are about. Pierce Avenue down this, just right around the corner, beautiful homes. And what we did in this neighborhood at the Walgreens on the corner, at the Six Corners, beautiful to save that building, turning an old bank into a Walgreens. Whenever possible, I would encourage renovation as opposed to tear down. That said, that doesn't mean it's always the right choice. So it really would be situational. But I would also look to the community for direction on that. Sometimes people see beauty in things that others don't, and I'd be happy to hear community groups when it comes to that. Parcels of land become what we make them, and every neighborhood group in this ward would absolutely have an open door. I would come to your neighborhood organization meetings and listen to any of your thoughts on the issue.
Thank you. Stacy? Excuse me, it's Cornell. Stop it.
There you go.
Sorry.
No worries, eh? All right, if we're talking about the process to determine whether we're going to do renovation or tear down, I'll tell you the same thing that I told North Dearborn Association. It's on videotape. You can go to the website, look it on the web. I'll send this developer and whoever's got an idea for it, I'll send and ask them, have you gone to the local community groups? Have you asked the neighbors of this area what they envision for their ward, what they want for their community? And just like we're doing up here tonight, we're coming out to you, presenting ourselves, doing the hard work, and all these good people want to do the best for the ward. And we want the best for you. And I'm going to tell this developer, hey, take the time out, just like we're doing, and talk to those community groups. Make sure that you're getting buy-in from the neighborhood and that you're working with them. You're not coming here trying to impose your ideas and thinking that you can give any of us some money and then just make it happen. That's not the way to work. So my process is to ensure that we are preserving the identity and character of a neighborhood wherever it is, and making sure that those developers are coming and talking to you first and working with us so we can create a collaborative effort and develop a ward holistically. Thank you.
And now it's
Thank you, Elaine. Of course, with my preservation background, that's a very sensitive topic for me, tear downs. I will always choose renovation at all possible. And I would go right to the community groups. I would immediately, if we have an issue in the ward of a vacant home that has been vacant for 10 years, dilapidated, becomes a safety issue, then that we'll have a community meeting right away with the local residents, local community groups, and talk about what is our vision there. Can we find a buyer that maybe would like to rehab that home and restore it to its glory? I love Wicker Park and the surrounding areas due to the historic character you have here. I actually have helped us facilitate some tours, historic tours of these neighborhoods. But again, it would be community-led on any decisions made, and I would definitely fight for renovation and try to find a developer to rehab it at all possible. With Finkel Steel, as Alex was mentioning, I've already started advocating to City Planning and Preservation Department to retain as much of the Finkel Steel buildings as possible for character. While in Detroit a couple years ago, there was a great reuse project of a distillery district that really reminds me of what we have at Finkel. And besides the point of keeping our history in our city, our landfills are full of building materials. And so all possible, let's keep as many out of the landfills as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Brian?
Thank you, and I do agree with Stacy on this issue. She has a strong background in historic preservation, and I respect her for it. My grandparents lived nearly all of their 80-plus years in a house, a 150-year-old house on Winchester, a couple of blocks south of here. My parents also lived in that house for most of their life, and I lived in that house, and when I got back from college, I bought that house. I have a great deal of fondness for the housing stock of Chicago. The older homes are what give our neighborhoods character, and I believe preserving them at all costs is something that I think we should all commit to. We have landmark districts for a reason, and that is to preserve the character and the flavor of neighborhoods, but it's also an acknowledgement that even aldermen, as powerful as they are, don't have absolute power over zoning decisions when it's a residential parcel and there's as-of-right zoning and someone that owns that property wants to do something with it. But we can do everything possible to encourage renovation and discourage tear-downs in most cases. And I do think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. Community organizations have to be involved in those decisions, but not just community organizations. Neighbors who live on the block, neighbors who live on the other side of the block, neighbors who live in the landmark district but might have an issue with the building just a few hundred feet outside, have to have a voice in those decisions. As alderman, I will commit to giving all residents of a neighborhood a voice when it comes to preserving the character of that community. I'll do everything I can to protect the historic homes that we have, whether they're in a landmark district or not. I believe it's very important to do that, and the community has to be involved.
Thank you. And that takes us to a use of public way question. So street festivals, which use the public way, have a big impact on residents and businesses in both the first and second wards. In fact, some also receive tax dollars through the SSAs. Currently, there is no financial transparency regarding these events. Many feel that a more equitable revenue share should come back to the neighborhood for schools and parks and other public use. So the question is, will you draft and sign legislation for the opening of books by all vendors and chambers of commerce for their festivals where the public way is used? And the first person is Alex.
Ironically, this question is interesting to me because I don't think in the second ward we were left with much opportunity to hold street festivals since we don't have any major, we don't have many major corridors, especially over here of business. But whenever you're using the public way, all of the community has to benefit from it. You're obviously using that land and taking that land from neighbors and inconveniencing them for a weekend, and the businesses as well, in order to host whatever festival is going on, Due Division or Wicker Park Fest, whatever it may be. This has been a controversial issue, particularly on the west side of the ward. What I want to step back and really understand before I commit to signing this ordinance or drafting an ordinance and signing it is where the discrepancy lies. And I'm not sure I do, to be honest with you. The chambers that are getting the money, as I understand it, are 501c3 organizations. And they take on the liability for the alcohol, they take on the insurance liability. There's a large cash outlay, as I understand it, on their parts to sponsor these festivals. So I'm on the local school council in my community. I want to see some of that money coming back to neighborhood groups and organizations that participate, but I need to understand more from both sides where the money is going, and frankly, I don't have a great understanding of that right now.
Okay, and Cornell is second, and as you're asking it, I just want to make a comment that though the second ward does not physically have festivals in this area, except at the where Wicker Park Fest and everything when it gets down to Milwaukee, Damon, and North. But the aldermen in the second ward do have influences over what goes on in the parks in this area, and the aldermen are supposed to be working together. So that's why the reason for the question. Okay, Cornell.
Let me answer the question. Yes, I will support legislation opening the books of SSAs. I think transparency and accountability is good for government. I think transparency and accountability is good for people who want to use public rights of way. Bottom line. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but I will support such legislation to make that happen. I know that there was a historic meeting of 5 different groups around here, community groups that demanded more transparency from people who want to use the right of way around here. It was EVA, it was Wicker Park Committee, and 3 other groups. And I will support that. I know that when you have the streets blocked off, those are your streets, those are my streets, Those are our streets. And if people are using those streets and saying that the money is going to go to one particular place or another, you need to have accountability for that. And you need to understand what's going on with your streets. So I will support that. Thank you.
Steve?
All right, so this is an example of the work that I'm already doing. I was one of the 5 people in the first meetings to combine neighborhood resources, neighborhood associations to work and draft a letter trying to hold the festival promoters more accountable, trying to hold the aldermen more accountable. What do we got? We got Fashion Fest, we got Wicker Park Fest, we got Green Fest, West Fest, New Division, New Orleans Fest. We have a lot of festivals over here. So we talk about traffic problems that come up. We had one weekend where we had Division Street, Chicago Avenue, and Grand Avenue blocked. And you can imagine how much side street traffic came out of that. So one of the first things we did was, this is Ukrainian Village Neighborhood Association, Wicker Park Committee, Bucktown Neighbors Association, East Village Association, and Chicago Grand Neighbors. We got together, and the first thing that we said was, can we work together on something, and what are we going to work together on? Street festival accountability was the #1 thing. So we led the fight to try to bring more awareness to the fact that there is not a lot of accountability for where some of this money goes. You go to a festival and you say $5 donation goes to a local school. How much of it really does? How much money does I know the SSA, they take a lot of liability, but they also put money into their own nonprofits, which this funds the chambers of commerce. So who's holding them accountable? I would specifically work hard on Joe Moreno, if he is reelected, to work with me on holding these festivals more accountable for the way that they use our public way.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't want to sound like a broken record, guys. Accountability and transparency. I know that. We all know that. But as your alderman, I will actually, not only will talk the talk, will walk the walk. Because I do believe, as your alderman, I can help you to ask questions. Where is this money going? The money we just made, closing our public ways. The public needs to know where that money goes. This is your right, and don't ever let anybody tell you anything different. This is your right to ask questions. We want to know where the money goes, how it's spent. As your alderman, I will work very closely to make sure that we keep eye on where that money goes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask the residents of Wicker Park and Bucktown and the communities in the western part of the Second Ward to vote for me as your next alderman. And if you do, and I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I pledge to you within the first 60 days of my term as your Second Ward alderman, I will introduce an ordinance that I'll write myself. I've written hundreds of ordinances during my 20 years as a staff person for Cook County government. I will write this ordinance, and I will introduce it in the city council, and I will advocate for its passage. Not because I want to punish the groups that are sponsoring street festivals, not because I think street festivals are a bad thing. On the contrary, I am a big fan of street festivals. I go to several every year. I love street festivals. I love them so much, I actually organized one in Streeterville a few years ago under the auspices of SOAR. We sponsored the first neighborhood festival in Streeterville's history. We broke even on our expenses, but Looking Glass Theater and the Alzheimer's Foundation made a profit from our festival, which I'm sure they put to good use through donations at the beer tents. I happen to have some familiarity with street festivals, and I think they're a great thing for the community. They bring neighbors together, people have a good time, and they make money for very good causes. If that's the case, then why would we want to hide that? I don't think we do. I think people want to see that. And I think the organizations that do a good job sponsoring their street festivals will be very happy to show the good that those festivals do for the community and the community groups that benefit from them. Many of them rely on those donations that they receive for a substantial part of their annual budget so they can turn around and give back to the community. And the vast majority of the labor that goes into making those street festivals possible, and I know it's a lot of labor. I spent so many hours that summer that we did Streeter Fest. That is volunteer labor. That's people donating their time because they want to help their community and they want to have fun doing it. So street festivals are a good thing, and if there's a street festival out there that is doing something that they would not necessarily be proud of, I want to shine a light on it to stop it.
Great, thank you, Elaine. First and foremost, I will always stand with our communities, our neighborhoods, and our residents. And as a lone independent in this race, I also am very much in favor of transparency and accountability. I would sponsor this ordinance. I've been hearing from leaders on this very issue when I've met with them for coffee the last 3 months. I've met with the head of Wicker Park, head of Wicker Park Committee, and I've met with East Village leaders, and this is one issue that they're very passionate about. They have felt that their communities have been overrun with street festivals as of late, as of the last few years. It wouldn't be a bad idea to set a limit of the number of festivals we have in these communities. I've read the guidelines that the 5 communities we've mentioned have drafted of what they would like to see from the festival promoters, and I greatly support them in that. Festivals are great, and they are a fun time. It does bring tourism to the neighborhoods, and it is a way for the neighborhoods to show off what they have. But even with an ordinance or a piece of legislation, putting them under some guidelines, the festivals will still continue, but it protects the communities that are trying to run their errands during these festivals and maintain also the character of the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. So the last question before we go into our other 2 is about fiscal responsibility. What do you see as the top 2 or 3 fiscal problems the city is facing, and what do you think should be done to address them? And the first person is Stacy.
The top 3 things that we need to address.
The top 2 or 3 fiscal problems the city is facing, and what do you think should be done to address them? Okay. What are they, and how should they be addressed?
The top 2, I think, first of all, the pension issue needs to be addressed right away. How are we going to meet this big pension payment in 2016 that's coming up, $600 million? I was disappointed to see it not addressed in the 2015 budget. One way I would look to address that, to meet our pension payments, we have 7 pension payments that need to be made to our firefighters, our policemen, our teachers, our municipal workers, and I would look at TIF surplus. First, with TIF, we have to do reform. We have to look, there are dollars available that we can help meet our pensions, and if that doesn't happen, then I would look at taxes. A tax that I'm looking at would be a local city income tax. I'm not for a property tax increase, and I'm not for commuter tax. But local city income tax would be a 0.5 to 1%. I think if we have to shoulder the burden, we all should shoulder the burden together and make that increase as small as possible. The other thing I think we need is, right now, operating budget for the city. Currently, we're having to borrow money to buy garbage cans, and that's a big problem. So we need to do some cutting of the budget with wasteful spending. There are a lot of clout contracts that are still given out, unfortunately. With our schools, CPS, I think an article last month said that the contractor was making $388,000 to oversee some rehabilitation of a few of the school buildings. So we have to look at wasteful spending, and I also would look at maybe city council in itself. Maybe we could downsize council to less aldermen staff, and if we're gonna have to cut spending, everything should be on the table, including city council. So, thank you.
Brian?
This year, we looked at approximately $300 million budget deficit. Projections for next year are as high as $500 million. We have a budget crisis in this city right now. There's no question about it. I believe I'm the candidate who is best prepared to address it. For 20 years, I've worked for Cook County government, much of that time as a budget analyst. I'm experienced in dealing with budgets. I know what to look for. I know where to find waste. I know where to find inefficiencies. I know how to look for consolidation. There's things that you can do to make a city government operate more efficiently, and we have to start there. Right now, we are actually borrowing money for operating expenditures. That's inexcusable. It should never happen. We've accumulated a tremendous amount of debt. Right now, we're spending about 23% of our total revenue in the city goes to servicing that debt. It should be no more than 15%. We have to get that back down to where it belongs. We have to protect our rating from the bond agencies. It's fluctuated somewhat, but they look at a situation like what we're facing with right now with a possible $500 million deficit. And when we get downgraded, our cost to borrow goes up even more. We have to get our fiscal house in order. There's nothing more important. The pension system is also at a crisis due to chronic years of underfunding. I do not support diminishing pension benefits for current employees or for retirees. We've made them a promise. We have to keep that promise, but we also have to look for ways to reform the system going forward that would meet the muster of the court system, which has ruled that pension benefits are constitutionally guaranteed. That doesn't mean changes can't be made. Changes can be made, and we have to look for ways to do that, and we have to negotiate with our employees' unions, and we have to bring all parties to the table to find a solution. I support TIF reform. We have over 160 TIFs right now. That's too many. Many of them are not in blighted areas, and we have to review the way we do that. There's also TIF surplus money that's available. Approximately $20 million of that went to help close the budget deficit last year. There's more there, and we can find it.
Thank you. Ida?
Thank you. Lane, do I have to cut it down to 2 because I got so many problems? Do I? I'm just kidding now. Thank you. I'll go 4. All right, guys. Very first one, as of yesterday morning, I was endorsed by our men and women, our Chicago police officers. They specifically told me, you are our candidate. Now, because I believe that the safety of our neighborhood comes first. Without safety, nothing else matters. If our children are not safe to go to school, if our hardworking men and women are not safe to go to their work, and our senior citizens who have paid taxes so many years are afraid of walking down, what good the economic development does? Which is my next one. We have to work on our economic development. We have to make sure good paying jobs are brought to our local neighborhoods. That's very important to me. Pension, Brian said that. Accountability, transparency.
Oh, we're talking about fiscal problems.
Okay, city services then. It's a big problem. We're paying taxes. We should need to stop borrowing money. It's like taking a second mortgage to pay for your groceries. That cannot be happening, guys. So let's just fix that problem. Make sure we're spending our money right. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first, I just want to share that tend to be a bit progressive. I would join the Progressive Caucus right away. I'm not a greedy person in life. I work in educational television. So you work for a nonprofit, you learn how to get by with, whatever money you can make. The city is not being accountable to the people that are paying taxes, that are paying into sometimes secret taxes like TIF. There is a lot of reform that we could look at for different things. Pensions, talking about the two main pensions that we usually talk about, police and teachers. With pensions, you have to fix these because right now we have overworked police officers and the city's paying all kinds of money in overtime just to avoid hiring more officers. So you keep kicking these pension deals down the road. Any one of us up here who gets elected, we're going to have to deal with what other generations of aldermen have been continually pushing down the road and not paying into. So we have to be held accountable for a lot of the past problems that aldermen have created for us. With teachers, I'm on the local school council for Columbus Elementary. I see firsthand what that school has to go through with finding ways to pay for things in the budget. In years past, we've had to sell off a parking space just to pay for the website development to be done. You have to find any way you can to pay things off because the budget is that tight. We need to find better ways to fund reducing the classrooms, bringing in more programs for after-school kids, trade programs, but it gets back to bond debt. We have this crazy amount of bond debt that's been building up since the mid-90s. And it only seems to get worse. So we have to find ways to make sure that we avoid bankruptcy. We need to restructure on our own.
Thank you.
Who's it?
There is no greater crisis than our pension fund. The city currently faces $297 million deficit in this year alone. Next year, that deficit will go up to $550 million just off pensions. That is the single greatest crisis facing us right now. And we are constitutionally obligated, and I would argue morally obligated, to pay those pensions. Those individuals worked their jobs, they did what they were told. It was their leadership that failed them. They kicked the can down the road. They had lax contributions, poor return on investments, coupled with promising benefits that they knew they couldn't pay for. So where does that leave us? That leaves us having to look at everything we can do to pay into those pensions. We have to figure that out. That means increasing revenue. That means finding a way to do it. Now, I wish I could sit here and tell you that we can magically generate $550 million, but we can't do that. I want to work with the Office of Financial Analysis. I want to work to develop comprehensive, long-term solutions that will benefit this city and not leave us bankrupt. That will not put the burden all on you, the taxpayers, because you didn't do this. Once again, that was your leadership that failed you. And so anyone who comes before you and says, hey, this is going to be an easy fix, I got it, that's not true. We have to figure our way out. Like I said, the biggest pension is a pension crisis. Everything else is small change. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Alex?
The top two fiscal problems that I think are facing the city are $14 billion in general obligation bond debt, and then our pension debt. And our pension debt, just for one example with our teachers, is $8 billion. The one thing I would start with is that I'm not in favor of finding revenue in property taxes. I would like to see the legislative body of this city start to act like a legislative body. And I think what that means to me is, as a co-equal branch of government, our city council needs to take an active role in laying out all the potential ways we could pay this debt. It could be tax increases, but not property tax increases. But debating them, really having a robust debate that involves our own new independent budget office and that proposes to this mayor ways in which we can start to begin to pay down this debt, and that pushes back on his budget. Because frankly, for years, our council hasn't pushed back, and that's why we are where we are today. The third issue, I think, is lack of police on the street, which I think we really need to fight for as a city council. two ways that I would do that. I would like to see us really look, and in terms of TIF reform, I would like to see us look at an ordinance that says, right now TIFs are 23 years. When they're very successful, why can't we have triggers in that 23 years to start to alleviate to start to cancel a TIF if it's doing really well? If it's really successful, it doesn't need to go for 23 years. And I think that would start to free up some money. The other thing I would want to see is that we never sell off a public asset, like our parking meters, like our Chicago Skyway. And to the extent anybody proposes that, I would like to introduce an ordinance that requires public hearings so you are a part of that discussion. I am not in favor of selling any public assets to pay any of this.
Thank you. And we are down to our last two questions, which are 1.5 minutes each. I'm going to ask the one I asked of the first ward. Liz is going to ask a different one than she did. And so the first person up on this one is going to be Brian, and here it is. The claim by the mayor and superintendent that crime is down have been challenged on the basis of such points as population change and miss and reclassifying cases to lower categories of crime. Here's the question. What two specific things will you do that are not already being done by the mayor or superintendent to improve safety and fight crime? Right.
Two things. Well, first, I was here earlier and I heard Alderman Moreno cite the statistics, and I have no reason to dispute those statistics. They sounded good, they sounded encouraging. Crime is down in a number of different areas, but if people don't feel safe, it doesn't really matter what the statistics say. I would introduce an ordinance to mandate crime reporting in a clear, concise manner. I know, for example, we have the CLEAR system, the data is online, those figures that Alderman Moreno cited are publicly available. That's already there. But if people don't believe them, if there's a suspicion there, if there's no credibility in law enforcement telling you what the situation is, that's a problem, and we do have that problem today. For example, if someone snatches a purse, and as they're running from their victim, they snatch another purse, and both of those victims call 911 and the police respond, is that one robbery or is that two? Well, right now, police have discretion in reporting, and there's different ways to massage the crime statistics. People don't really trust the crime statistics right now, and that's a problem. I would support an ordinance to bring greater transparency, not just in the numbers, but in the way the numbers are produced. I think that's very important. I also support adding patrol office to the streets. I think all the candidates here have said that as well. If we cut police overtime by 25%, that would bring an additional 250 patrol officers to the city, and I think we need that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. First of all, while I was working in the Second Ward office, I was the main liaison with the different police districts, 18th, 12th, and 14th. And I've attended many beat meetings throughout the new Second Ward. Every CAPS meeting, we were told that crime was down, but yet every day there would be crimes reported in our office. So I'm not sure how much we can trust the statistics. We have to go by, what we're hearing on the streets. I want more officers, and I'll find the money. This $100 million in overtime is not sustainable. Every year it increases. I want to say in 2012, or was it 2013, they said that it was going to be $32 million in overtime expenses, and ended up being $100 million. So if we budgeted in 2015 for $100 million, what's it going to be, $175 million? I know several aldermen, including Alderman Wagaspak, who has endorsed my candidacy, asked at these budget hearings for police budgets, asked the superintendent over and over again for monthly budgets of where the money is going, and I don't think he's gotten those budgets yet handed to him. So there needs to be more transparency of how the police are spending their money. If there's wasteful spending, let's cut it and let's get more officers on the street. I've been hearing about crimes in these neighborhoods and also in Ukrainian Village, and they want more patrol. And then the other thing is focus groups. Let's find the problem corners. One thing 18th District was doing, got more residents engaged, is focus groups. Oh, sorry.
Two things I would do. Number one, work with our police commanders and ensure that we're doing community-based policing. What does that mean? Community-based policing, too often people throw it around as an empty platitude. For me, that means walking the blocks, knowing your neighbors. You should know who your police officers are that walk the beat every day in and out. You should know their badge number. You should have some sort of constant communication with them. That's what community-based policing means to me. That's what I did when I was trained on how to patrol. That's what we did when I actually was in Iraq and deployed. I'm not an infantry guy, but the few times I did get to patrol, we walked around, we talked to people, we got to know them, and they said, hey, the bad guys are over here, let's go find them. That's what community-based policing means to me. Second thing, let's target the source of this crime. We can all continue to be reactive, but now let's talk about being proactive. Go to cureviolence.org. They have a great program. They have great initiatives where they are trying to stem the tide of violence day in, day out, and they are putting great programs together to attack it at its source. And that means working with youth who are disaffected by violence each and every day. It means providing jobs for them. When people have jobs, when they have something to do, when they're productive, they're not out there looking for crime to do, not out there looking for the next fix. So two things, working with the police commanders, doing community-based policing. That means 12th, 14th, and 18th district commanders. Our ward is a big ward, and attacking crime at its source. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex? Alex?
Starting with the statistics, we all heard about the woman who was shot by her boyfriend at Nordstrom, I think it was the night before Thanksgiving, and I'm told that that crime was categorized not as, she died the next day, it was not categorized as a murder for weeks, and I'm not 100% sure it's been corrected yet. That kind of discretion in how you categorize a crime has to stop, and that's one of the first places I would start, is the introduction of an ordinance to try to take that discretion out of CPD. Right now, the Chicago Magazine has run a huge expose on this, and it's a true problem. We can't even get accurate statistics about where crime is and how bad it is or is not. I am disturbed whenever I hear reports of an alderman being unable to get a budget from a major agency of this city. I won't put up with it as an alderman, and you will all hear about it, and I hope you will stand with me on that. Again, the city council is a co-equal branch of government, and we have the right to that information, and I'll fight for it so that we actually understand what's going on in the budget. As far as locally and what I would do as your alderman, I talked earlier about a Second Ward Volunteer Corps, and I would hope and invite all of you to be a part of that and be a part of positive loitering in the community. And I would also bring CAPS to us as opposed to expecting us to go to them, to my ward nights, to...
Thank you.
Has everybody seen my first piece? About over 20,000 people received that. We call the police, Neighborhood Watch. I have also, thank you, I'm a proud wife of a Chicago police officer. So, as I said it before, and I say it again, we need more police officers. We need to have them have support on the street. But I'm going to take it one step further of what the mayor is doing. I will not let another red light camera go on our street, and that's the pledge. That's the pledge. Let's get some more police officers, because let me tell you, the cameras are not creating safety. Our police officers are due. As of bringing the community and our police department together, I have been the girl who created positive loitering. I have been the girl who's standing out on the street, making sure the bad guys know that I'm there. So definitely I need to work with our police officers and our community. But once again, No more red light cameras.
Steve?
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I want to thank Beta for mailing out all of the Neighborhood Watch flyers. Let me tell you a little bit about the real Neighborhood Watch in the area. What I want to do is replicate for the second ward what I've done for West Town, okay? When I moved to Ukrainian Village, I had neighbors across the street. This is the first week I lived there. That got broken into on a Tuesday, and they came home on a Friday, and they got broken into again in the same week. There are crazy things that happen in the West Town neighborhood. What I try to do is bring neighbors together to talk about those things and educate each other on what's going on. How do you report things? How does 911 work? How does 311 work? Get everybody on the same page. We've caught catalytic converter thieves. We've even reunited over 100 lost dogs with their owners. When you get people working together, you can do amazing things and do community building. So crime is one of those common things that connects everybody. Unfortunately, you're either a victim of it or you know somebody who else has. So these forums that I've created have touched over 10,000 neighbors. Now, what we try to do is coordinate efforts. I was out there fighting to save the 13th police station. When we lost that, I went to the Housing Committee and I testified against how horrible it would be to close that. Whenever somebody gets arrested, the cops have to be off the street for an hour. The second thing is we need a new police commissioner who isn't going to mess around with statistics. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more question. We have one more question which Alyssa is going to pose, but before that, and I relinquish my little thingy here, I want to thank all of you for your time and your excellent, caring answers. And I want to thank all of you for being so courteous and listening. So, Alyssa, last question.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to keep it real short, and I also wanted to thank everybody for being here and being so patient as well. Final question that I'm going to ask is just, do you think Mayor Rahm Emanuel should be reelected? Why or why not? And we'll go actually wherever the mic is. We'll just start there. So Steve or Brian?
I'll take it if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll go to Alex, and then we'll go down to
You know, what the mayor's done is he's put Chicago on the map. He's built up tourism. He's trying to focus on bringing conventions to the city. He's trying to empower a lot of the downtown business to last a long time. What he's not doing is he's not paying attention to the communities. When you close so many schools, when you don't do the research on how it's going to affect neighborhoods, and you basically take families out of so many different neighborhoods and make kids have to walk so far to go to school. CPS is closed again tomorrow, for those who don't know. One of the reasons is that kids have to walk so far to go to school because the school's closed. So there's a reason why you see some private schools stay open and why you see CPS closed when it gets so cold. Does the mayor pay attention to the communities? I don't think he does. So I wouldn't vote for him, personally. Is that the question? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the decision about who becomes the mayor of the city of Chicago is up to all of you. I will tell you I have major disagreements with this mayor. I also agree with him on some other things. When it comes to schools, having been on the local school council in Wicker Park here at Jose de Diego, I absolutely disagree with the decision to close the schools and the way they were closed. I also disagree with the budget he's given us as a welcoming school. To echo a little bit of what Steve said, at my welcoming school, we accepted 3 other schools. They crossed 27 gang lines to get to school. And when I say gang lines, they're now little gangs. We've done a good job of breaking gangs up, but now little gangs are popping up in their place, and these kids are trying to incorporate their lives and adjust their lives to that, knowing that their parents have issues with each other out in the streets. So that's one area I would disagree with him on. But I disagree a little bit when Steve talks about whether the mayor has helped communities. In some ways, I think he has. Right now, there's a tourism program that one can disagree with or agree with. It isn't all about downtown. There is a huge effort, it's called Choose Chicago, to move people out into our neighborhoods to showcase them. And this mayor wants to do that, and he wants to bring tourism here. The 606 Bloomingdale Trail is a part of that. The new hotel that's being built at Six Corners is a part of that, and I'm gonna fight for that foot traffic to get out here to support our businesses.
Thank you. Just right down the road.
Thank you for mentioning the 606, Alex. And that's a good example of something that Mayor Emanuel did that I support. Going back to before he was mayor, when he was in Congress, he fought for that. And I think that's a wonderful thing for this city. There's some things that Mayor Emanuel has done that I really agree with, and some things that I vehemently disagree with. I'm glad that we're about to have a very spirited race for the mayor of Chicago. The citizens of this city deserve nothing less than that. I've had the privilege of working closely with Commissioner Garcia for a number of years on the county board. He's an outstanding leader and a fine man, a man of integrity, and he's running a very spirited campaign. I've gotten to know Alderman Fioretti in the last couple of years. I really liked what he had to say in his public safety platform that he announced a couple of days ago. This is going to be a good race, and we deserve nothing less. And I'm like you, I'm waiting to see how it plays out, and we'll be voting on February 24th for not just the second ward alderman, but for the mayor of the city of Chicago. I don't know who Mayor Emanuel is going to vote for on this table, and so I'm not going to tell him who I'm going to vote for.
Well, we're reaching out to all the mayoral candidates and asking what they're going to do for the second ward. They haven't responded yet. So we will keep asking them what specifically they're going to do for our neck of the woods and how they're going to promote and grow our city. So I'm going to look forward to the debates. I'm going to look forward to each and every one of them, whether it's Chuy Garcia, whether it's Willie Wilson, whether it's Rahm Emanuel, getting up there and talking about how they're going to push this city forward. I know that this city was in dire straits when Mayor Emanuel came aboard. I know that he got dealt a tough hand to work with, and it's only going to get tougher. And I think anyone who's going to assume the mayor's spot, be on that fifth floor, is going to have a challenge ahead of them and has to work with all the aldermen. No matter where they come from, no matter what their agenda is, they're going to have to work together. So I look forward to hearing all their fleshed out agendas, all of their fleshed out plans. I look forward to seeing the debate just like we're up here before you and making that decision at an appropriate time.
I personally will not be voting for Mayor Emanuel, but you have to make that decision for yourself. I feel that when a public servant is no longer listening to the public, then that's when they should go. And he has, but I should change that. Within the last 6 months, when he has started his re-election campaign, he has started to listen to his constituents. But from the beginning, he was handed a tough deck, as Cornell said, and it is a tough job, and a lot of tough decisions need to be made. I have good relationships, obviously, with Alderman Fioretti. I also have a good relationship with Commissioner Garcia. I would look to work with both of them. I also will work with Mayor Emanuel if he's elected to make sure the second ward gets whatever they need. The other thing with Mayor Emanuel, I feel that we continue to concentrate all the dollars downtown when our neighborhoods are starving. Our roads, our parks, our schools, and tree trimming. Believe it or not, tree trimming, a lot of people have that on their mind. It was hard for me to have to tell people it may be a year to get your trees trimmed. That's ridiculous when, they're paying a high amount of property taxes. So we need to take care of our constituents. As your alderman, I'll make sure, far and foremost, that I will take care of you and your needs. And the new mayor needs to listen from day one and take care of his constituents' needs. Thank you.
The million-dollar question. I have to, first of all, say that I don't want my opinion to affect your vote on the election day. That's a very important choice that you have to make. However, you have to remember that Rahm Emanuel picked up where Daley's messed up. That's just the way it is. Do I agree with all his choices? No, I don't believe he did the right thing with closing the schools. I don't think he did the right thing by getting more police officers. He did have a lot of tough choices to make. And if he becomes the mayor, I am willing to work with him, because I do not want the constituents of the second ward to suffer as a result of my disagreement with him. Because one thing we all know, we have to learn to work together. We don't have to agree on every issue. And as an independent thinker, I believe, guys, I'm sorry, my English sometimes is not good. I speak 5 languages, so I mess up sometimes. As an independent thinker, however, I do believe I will stand for the constituents of the second ward, and I will work for the mayor if I need to. But more important than anything, you guys come first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your patience and great answers, and
Thanks,
thank you for
Elaine.
everybody being here. Thanks. And the Wicker Park Committee and Pastor Jason and CAN TV and Lee.